I grew up in a little community in Conejos County called Los Sauces. That's where the Conejos and the Rio Grande meet. Very interesting little tiny community. The little community of Los Sauces, if I'm correct, was settled or established in 1855, and a lot of my ancestors came from northern New Mexico, and some of my grandparents actually came from Conejos, Guadalupe, down into Los Sauces and settled there, and it's one of the oldest water rights there. I think that was registered like in 1865. Down in Los Sauces, we were priority number 32 on the Conejos River, number 1 priority on the McIntyre Springs. And when my dad was, because he used to grow potatoes, good potato country over there. When I was growing up, my dad was into the sheep business, so I learned all of that. He was into doing hogs at one time, so I learned all of that. I excelled in sports. I was a 3-sport letterman, 4-year letterman. And I did football. I wrestled, which was my best sport. I qualified to state and placed 5th in heavyweight in 1969. And then I did track. I used to throw the shot put and discus. But when I was a junior, I wanted to be in the junior play because that seemed to be a big thing in school. So we had to go interview with the teacher that approved who was going to be in the play and who wasn't. So I got in there and I was interviewing with her, and she looks at me real serious, and I thought, well, what's wrong? And she said, we can't allow you to be in the junior play in Sanford because you have a heavy Spanish accent. That's about as low as they could go, I thought. But at that time, my parents were pretty much busy farming, and you know, we just let that ride, and you learn from it, but it hurt. When my sister was a senior, she was valedictorian or had the highest grade point average, and I guess they just couldn't have a Hispanic be valedictorian there. So they said they had to bring in like 3 tests to average in with the grade point average. I remember one of them being ACT, and I don't know if it was SAT. Anyway, they averaged the 3 scores, and my sister and another girl tied, and they said they had to flip a coin. Well, guess who lost? My sister. So she wasn't valedictorian. Those are just some examples. The problem we're having in education is education needs to start at home, and that's not happening anymore. We have a lot of broken up families, 1-parent families, no-parent families. So it's hard for those young kids to deal with all that and try to keep up. And I've always been a firm believer education starts at home, and you can see a lot of those young kids coming to school, ones that are prepared and the ones that aren't. There is not too much cash flow farming and ranching. So especially in those days, you needed loans to be able to operate, and really, in my case, I needed loans to buy land to get started, and they wouldn't approve loans if you were Hispanic. Very, very few here in the valley, and I understand nationwide it was pretty much that way, but I believe USDA trained their employees to where it was really hard for us Hispanics to get loans. I went to, back then it was called the FHA office, and I was on State Street, and I went in to borrow a loan to buy some land, and so they kind of took my information, and they told me the reason they gave me is that I couldn't borrow a loan from the government because I was a teacher, that I had other means to make a living besides borrowing loans from, back then it was FHA. Well, I had heard from other friends already that was the same situation. They actually referred me to a farm credit in Monte Vista at that time, and I went over there and tried, and again they gave me the same reason. There was one in my neighboring school that was actually superintendent, and at that time he got a pretty good sized farm loan. My dad started borrowing money from him in the early 60s, and they made life really hard on him. At times they'd make him sell his cows because he had to pay a certain amount, and his mother cows was his income, because the following year they were going to have a calf, and that was what was going to bring him his income. But yeah, a lot of people my dad's age had the problem since the 60s. Well, that first time, it wasn't that bad, to be honest with you. And then I went to the Monte Vista, and then that kind of started setting in. But then they said that they did have money back in the Alamos IFHA, so I came the second time, and they wouldn't even take my application that time. Now, by the third time, it hurt economically, definitely hurt us, because the way I was able to continue farming is from my teaching income, and so it was a little bit at a time, and you know, my bases were always covered because I never had a big loan, but if I'd had a big loan with the energy I had and the knowledge back then, I think I'd have been able to do pretty good. Shortly after early 80s, I mean, it was a conversation. It was like in year 2000, 2001, when we were all fed up with it, and Lupe Garcia from Las Cruces, New Mexico, they were having the same situation down there, and that's when Lupe got together with some attorneys and filed the Garcia versus Vilsack. And it was a long road from then till, well, I think most people got a settlement in 2015. I was denied. I didn't get anything. And I got a letter of denial, and I couldn't believe it, because a lot of the people were getting their acceptance letters. And so I called my attorney to see what was going on, and she said, that couldn't be right. Something's wrong. So she called over to USDA office, and she kept telling them it's a mistake. If anybody had all the paperwork in line, it was Faustin, and I was one of the original ones that filed way back, and I've been in farming all my life, and still, beginning of this month, she wrote more letters and did an inquiry, and she's trying to get them to review it again, because she says it's a mistake. There is no possible way that she could have denied this one and approved a bunch of the others. But Hispanics here in the San Luis Valley, I think my attorney said they had filed 700 and 600 were approved, which was by far the highest rate in the United States. But overall, I think Hispanics are only like 18 or 20% approved. You had to file your declaration of how it all happened. You had to file loans that you had applied for, the interest rates. Our interest rates were pretty darn high. USDA loans were 2-3%. We were paying 12-14%. And then we had to provide titles or deeds of our property to prove that we had been in farming. And I had everything in order. And who knows, maybe they just randomly pulled some names out. I don't know. My dad had filed before he passed away. And then my mom continued it, and then she passed away. And my sister was actually the administrator for the estate. They approved my dad's, and so we ended up splitting the estate, all the kids. So I got a little bit through there. They really made it hard for Hispanics, as they told us, all you qualify is for the $50,000. There was a $250,000 tier, and they pretty much told all of us that we couldn't apply for that. Now, there was a few in the valley that did. Some down in Conejos County got approved for the 250, and one in Monte Vista County. I think that's about it on the 250. Now, one of the things that really bothered us is Bigford, which was the black farmers. They got huge dollars. They got approved big time. And there was some farmers that got as high as 10 million because they were able to prove their losses. A lot of Hispanics could have proved that too. They didn't give us a chance to go that route. I think it's Keep Siegel, the Native Americans. They also had very good luck, and they got big time approvals. For the Hispanics, they made it hard on us since day one. There was a judge that denied our class since the very beginning. It might be Roberts, but I'm not even sure. And so right from the beginning, we had an uphill battle. They wouldn't accept our class, but they accepted all the others. And it was a tough go. I attended meeting after meeting everywhere. As a matter of fact, I was kind of one of the organizers for this area. And I remember going to Las Cruces, New Mexico, because that's where Lupe Garcia was at, and we had a lot of meetings and conferences over there. And but at the end, it was to no avail. I mean, I'm the type that if they knock me down, I'm going to get back up. I'm not going to stay down, and that's what I feel about that, and it did benefit a lot of Hispanics, so I was very happy for that. My parents could easily have gone for the 250, and this was another problem. Our case started with Stephen Hill under Howery Law Firm, and then we kind of kept changing, or they'd keep assigning us to different ones. This last one, when we were ready to file everything at the end, it was an attorney called Frotz. And I remember talking to him because my parents had boxes and boxes of documents. I mean, huge amounts of documents. And so I explained all that to him, and he said, And this is one of the things that they required to go for the 250. None of the other classes had to do this, but we did. Is you had to have filed a discrimination suit with civil rights or a discrimination case with civil rights. And there was a couple farmers in Conejos County that had done that. The one in Rio Grande County I know didn't do that, but he went with a different attorney and he filed for the 250 and he got the 250 and he had never filed a case with civil rights. But some of these attorneys get caught up in some of the politics too, I believe. And that was the problem. We changed so much all along the way. Now, the two ladies that stayed with us all the way, but their law firm would change or their bosses would change, was Colette Harrell and Jennifer Somolik. And Jennifer Somolik's still the one trying to fight for mine, saying that it was a mistake. But those two ladies are excellent. You know, I think it changed my trust in the legal system, my trust in the political system. If I was to be able to do it all over again, is I would search everywhere for a big loan, because if you go large since the very beginning, you got a much better chance. You're able to withstand losses, etc. When you're pretty small, if you have any kind of loss, you have bad weather, there's a lot of farming is worse than going to Las Vegas, I think, because it's a big gamble. But you have to put it all together and make it work the best you can. But I would advise young farmers to search everywhere possible to get a big enough loan to start big.